Ever heard of Marion Stokes? She was an American activist who recorded 24 hours of television every day for 35 years. Upon her passing in 2012, she had amassed over 70,000 VHS and Betamax tapes. This week, let's look at her story. I'm Larry Fedorik, and this is Later That Same Life. On each episode of my weekly podcast, a different topic, discussion, commentary, or story from our lives.
Season 21, Chapter 9, The Woman Who Taped Everything.
What would compel someone to begin to tape regular television and then maintain a discipline of multiple VCRs, complicated scheduling and archiving, not to mention storage, for 35 years? I'm going to get to that. First, think about this for a second. Have you ever come across an old bin full of your VHS tapes? I don't mean movies that you may have bought along the way, but your personal tapes, the blank ones that you bought to record television shows and then watch them on your own schedule. And do you remember when you were first able to do that? How luxurious and liberating it was not to be tied down to the network schedule. We all got onto that pretty quickly. Well, some a little more quickly than others.
If you want to watch one show, but record another show at the same time, the television set does not have to be on channel 3.
It does.
No, it does. No, if you're watch a recording, then it has to be on 3.
Wait, the TV or the machine?
The TV.
You're saying I can record something I'm not even watching?
Yes, that's the point. You don't even need a TV to record.
How would I see it?
Well, to see it, you need a TV. But
Shut up. Just shut up. He doesn't get it. He'll never get it. It's been 4 hours. The cows can tape something by now. Forget about it, please.
Do you also remember how rapidly it changed the social paradigm? You could no longer gather at the proverbial water cooler or the staff lunchroom to discuss last night's Cheers episode, because you had taped it, planning to watch it on the weekend. We began using the term spoiler alert, in which case you had to immediately leave the room. Don't tell me about Sam and Diane. I taped it. I haven't watched it yet. This should have been our first clue that technology leads to isolationism, but it wasn't. We missed that one. It's got to be a good 10 years since I finally threw out all those VHS tapes that I'd been storing. I imagine they're all still intact somewhere in a landfill just outside of town. Now, I never had a video camera in the day, so I didn't have tapes of, my kids' birthdays or recitals, because those I would have saved and had them digitized and everything. No, my VHS tapes were like SNL episodes, half a season of moonlighting, 60 minutes segments. Why am I saving these? Out with the trash. I had maybe about 30 or 40 tape cassettes. Now think again of Marion Stokes. Over 70,000 tapes, over 800,000 hours of television. And it wasn't curated. Save the Good stuff, Michael's Moonwalk, Tiananmen Square, the O.J. verdict. No, she just taped everything, and she saved it all. Marion Stokes began her taping project in 1977, recording selective shows and news broadcasts, and then scaled up to 24/7 in 1979 during the Iranian hostage crisis. Stokes felt that there was a lot of detail in the news reporting that was in danger of disappearing.
I think there should definitely be controls of other kinds as well, of material means of manipulating mind and emotion. And I think there's so many examples in daily life that people simply don't recognize.
She also thought at the time that without video evidence, TV networks and other powers that be would try and rewrite history.
Those in power are able to write their own history from their own bias.
This taping project of hers would not let that happen. Marion Stokes was born Marion Butler in Philadelphia in 1929, and by high school she had already become very politically aware and active, especially with the so-called left-wing organizations. Early on, she was being scouted by the Communist Party USA, who saw her as a future leader for their party. She was the Philadelphia chair of the Fair Play for Cuba Committee. She became heavily involved in the American Civil Rights Movement. working to desegregate a local college. She organized several buses from Philly for the Freedom March on Washington, and she was a librarian at the Free Library of Philadelphia for more than 20 years. Later, Stokes was on the founding board for the National Organization for Women. In 1960, she married a teacher, Melvin Medelitz, who was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. The two were investigated and spied on by the FBI, to the point where they planned to flee the U.S. and defect to Cuba. The two moved to Mexico to wait for that Cuban visa. They had a son. The visa never came. Marion and her child left Mexico, and the couple officially separated 4 years later. From 1967 to 1969, she produced a Sunday morning television show in Philadelphia at the CBS affiliate that focused on social justice issues. It was called Input.
Well, I find some people certainly grappling with and not quite understanding how it is that we managed to get these people together in the first place to talk, and not understanding the concept of an open community of trust, which is big enough and open enough to include all the points of view expressed within a context of respect.
Her co-producer was John Stokes, Jr. He would go on to be her husband. They remained married up until his passing in 2007. John Stokes, Jr. is key to this story, as he was a wealthy American engineer, as well as a social activist. Because if you're wondering how Marion Stokes funded her 35-year taping project, well, they had money. Talk is also that Marion invested early in Apple and other new technology companies. As a matter of fact, she encouraged her already rich in-laws to do the same. Needless to say, those early stock investments became quite lucrative, and a lot of money went towards tapes, machines, storage, and more. Her taping project only ended with her passing in 2012. At that time, she had 9 different properties, all packed to the rafters with thousands of VHS and Betamax tapes. She had also filled 3 storage units, and it wasn't just tapes. Stokes received 11 different daily newspapers and had subscriptions for up to 150 monthly periodicals, and never threw anything out. She saved every issue of every paper and magazine. Also, over 50 years, it's estimated that she accumulated over 40,000 books. Apparently, it was not uncommon for her to go out to a bookstore on a Saturday and drop $800 on new volumes. Get this, she purchased dozens upon dozens of Macintosh computers, which she stored in a climate-controlled warehouse. She says she bought and kept them for posterity. Upon her death in 2012, 192 of these remained unopened, factory sealed. They included rare items like Mac portables, Power Mac towers, and the Apple Lisa. This is pretty rare. It was Apple's first groundbreaking personal computer. They say the whole thing was worth about $1 million. After she died, it was sold at an eBay auction, anonymous bidder, unknown price. Marion Stokes also collected toys and dollhouses. So she was a hoarder. Well, yes, it seems so, but not just a hoarder. Her taping project was a social initiative. As I said, her goal was to preserve visual history, save truth, and protect people from fake news, and eventually to have people be able to access these archives so as to assess world events objectively. Outside of the news, Marion Stokes also taped select TV shows: Cosby, Divorce Court, Nightline, The Today Show, The Tonight Show, Oprah Winfrey, Antiques Roadshow, even Star Trek. Her system involved up to 8 different VCRs or tape decks, able to record different networks. And it was 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, for 35 years. Relentless. Needless to say, her life revolved around this taping project. On slow speed, these tapes could hold up to 6 hours of programs. Marion knew exactly when her tapes needed to be changed. She would schedule her work projects, family outings, even sleep around the ability to attend to switching out old tapes for new ones. Then labeling and filing. Obviously, extended vacations would be out of the question. Even with all that family money, she never really hired anyone to do this for her. This was her project. She did live to be 83, and in later years, as she became less agile, she did train an assistant to help out, but that was it. By the way, that doesn't sound like a bad gig, does it? Change tapes, hit record, come back later, do it again. Yeah, here's my resume. With all this, Marion also kept an extensive, handwritten daily journal of her life and thoughts. If it sounds a little crazy, even with the best of intentions, well, it probably is crazy, at least a little. Marion didn't think so.
When you have an institution like a museum or a university and they begin to collect, you don't tend to question why they're doing it. There must be a rational reason. But when you're one lone person, and especially a woman, then you're considered to be an outlier. We shouldn't ascribe rationality to those in power and irrationality to those without it.
Marion Stokes had that one biological son with her first husband. She also had 4 stepchildren from John Stokes' previous marriage. When she died, she bequeathed her entire estate to her biological son, Michael, with instructions that he donate her collections to the charity of his choice. You know, our mom died about 3 years ago now, and my brother and I were tasked with clearing out her last apartment. Thankfully, she had already downsized a couple of times in her later years. But even at that, it was quite the job. I mean, you had to go through everything, just in case there was some gem among the junk. It took us a few days. There was a lot of, "Oh, wow, I can't believe she held on to this." And, "Oh, look, remember this? I can't believe she saved this thing for all these years." It was emotional. We got through it, saving quite a few precious items, mementos. I've talked to some people who, when their parents passed, had to clear out an entire 3-bedroom home with a basement and garage. Relatively speaking, we had it easy. But can you imagine coming upon 71,000 VHS tapes? 50 years of newspapers and magazines, toys, dollhouses, a warehouse of Apple computers, and it's across 9 different properties? Well, I guess Michael knew what his mom was into, but still, what a daunting task. After about a year, he decided to donate it all to the Internet Archive. It's a nonprofit out of San Francisco, whose entire mission is to save, digitize, and provide access to modern media data and information. It took 4 huge shipping containers to get the collection from Philly to San Fran, at a cost of $16,000 to Marion's estate. It was obviously the largest single collection Internet Archive had ever received. In return, they agreed to digitize all of that taped content. That is expected to cost about $2 million. I say expected because the digitization is not over yet. It's 35 years of stuff, over 800,000 hours. A lot of this has to be done in real time, and it takes a lot of machines and a lot of volunteers. And funding has also become an issue. If you're wondering, and I know I was, sounds and images on a VHS tape have a life of anywhere from 10 to 30 years, depending on quality of storage, temperature, humidity, exposure to light, all of that stuff. You know, a lot of people used to store their tapes right beside their TV. That's actually bad for them. Keep tapes as far away as possible from any magnetic fields. And even with all that, there's still a natural chemical breakdown. You would still lose about 10 to 20% of quality. In perfect conditions, these tapes can last up to 40 years. If you search Internet Archive or Marion Stokes taping project, you can actually watch some of the fruits of Marion's labor. Also on Internet Archive, you can read pages from her journal. I did watch a few of them. Quality is pretty good. It's not the crisp digital world that we've come to expect, but pretty good. Marion Stokes is most associated with the term guerrilla archiving. She didn't invent it, but she's considered a pioneer. Guerrilla archiving is basically a grassroots rapid response by activists, or non-activists, ordinary people, to save valuable data, history, or cultural heritage from political erasure, censorship, or institutional neglect. You know, it's kind of what some antiquers do in a way, and what the Smithsonian is all about in the States, preserving history. Guerrilla archivists engage in various activities like web scraping and mirroring, which is basically copying and downloading public databases before they are altered or deleted. It is why today it is so difficult, if not impossible, to get something completely off the internet, to scrub it clean. Because as soon as it's up there, several people have already saved it and will probably repost it. Sometimes these guerrilla archivists smuggle and or hide physical documents or artifacts just to keep them out of the wrong hands. Hey, we all know what would happen if those Nazis got their paws on the Ark of the Covenant. They do this to preserve history and keep stories from being marginalized, especially those of minorities and special interest groups that are often ignored by the mainstream. Guerrilla archiving is very important. That's what Marion Stokes believed in, which makes it sound a little less crazy, doesn't it?
We shouldn't ascribe rationality to those in power and irrationality to those without it.
I don't know about the toys in the dollhouses, but the tapes? She already saw in the 1970s what many of us recognize today, the manipulation of facts and data, alternative facts, misinformation, disinformation, misdirection, concealment. To her, videotapes were a way to counter this. The preservation of truth was worth the around-the-clock attention she paid 7 days a week for 35 years. Her story is not that well known, but it should be. That's why I wanted to retell it here as a lesson, especially in the age of massive data, overstimulation, narrative control, and the battle for the mind. For years, we feared a future as painted by George Orwell in his book 1984, where we had to conform, where we'd be constantly monitored, controlled, the thought police. And though at times it feels like we already live in that reality, Aldous Huxley described a brave new world where we are not censored. As a matter of fact, we are afforded every pleasure. We are brainwashed with consumerism and self-satisfaction. No need to ban books, because we're all too distracted to read them. Orwell predicted that we wouldn't be allowed to care. Huxley predicted that we just wouldn't care. Orwell said information would be controlled. Huxley basically said that so much of it would flow that we'd be overwhelmed, unable to disseminate it all, so we'd just give up. Which of those worlds do we really live in? It was easy to fear an Orwell dystopia. 1984, it was a number, it was looming, but perhaps we should have been reading Huxley. It's possible that in fearing Orwell, Marion Stokes created a brave new world. So many tapes, so much information. We'll never get through it, so why bother? Now, in either scenario, the preservation of history, the archiving of what just happened, is important. I believe so. Marion Stokes, whether inspired by Orwell, Huxley, both, neither, was a bit of a futurist in her own right. She saw, in my opinion, that not only the manipulation of information was happening, but that it would continue to happen. She looked at life as presented by the media, and she hit record, and then kept on hitting record over and over. There's a movie about her. It's a documentary. It premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival back in 2019. It's called Recorder, the Marion Stokes Project. I've seen it available on a few different streaming platforms. I also found it for free on YouTube. There's a book called Input. It came out in 2023. It features images from Stokes' TV show of the same name that she produced in the late 60s. Marion Stokes. Now you know what she did and how and why, even when and where. I think today a lot of us feel that there is this huge VCR out there. Everything that we do is somehow being watched and recorded. Then, of course, all the data gets manipulated and mined for profit. But how is it being archived? Call out the gorillas.
Later That Same Life is written, voiced, and produced by Larry Fedoruk. Larry Fedoruk, 37, @gmail.com. Subscribe to Larry's YouTube channel. Get automatic notifications with each new episode